What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. I am the Martian, joined by my co-host Ozzy. How we doing this week, Ozzy?
Great. You got the holidays coming up. We're going to have a 1 week break right after this card. And coming off that pretty fun card last week, tons of finishes, lots of action. And fortunately for me, was able to come out, ahead a bit. I think was definitely a card of a lot of variance. But looking to finish the last four cards of the year super strong and carry that momentum into January.
Yeah, I had a slight loss on bets for me last week. Literally as slight as it gets, zero point zero 0.01 units. But a loss is a loss. And like Ozzy said, it was a good card though. A lot of finishes. A couple guys we had high hopes for didn't live up to those expectations. Specifically, Baeza, Arce, and our girl Letson. She really let us down there. But like as you said, we have a week off after this. I didn't even really fully realize that, but we got one last card before that break, before that Thanksgiving break, the Vieira versus Tate card going down this Saturday, 12 fights from the Apex. And let's get right into the first fight. I just noticed none of these fights are above welterweight, so we got a lot of lower weight fights and some good betting spots in this one, even though it doesn't have the best name value of this card. So starting things off, women's strawweight division, we have Luana Pinheiro as the massive favorite, minus 410, taking on Sam Hughes plus 310. I don't think Hughes is that bad, honestly. I think that she has a decent skill set. She just has really no physicality, and that's just going to be a big problem for her. But her fight against Loma was really close. I had a big bet on Loma there, and we just scraped that one by. We got pretty lucky, honestly, that Loma got a late takedown there. But Hughes's boxing looked all right there. Her cardio looked good. She won round three, and Pinheiro is definitely going to be taking her down early here. Pinheiro's got that judo background. She loves hitting those throws, but I'm not seeing much of a top game from her. Haven't been too impressed with her striking. So I think the striking actually favors Hughes here. And if Hughes can survive those first couple of big takedowns, maybe wait till Pinheiro gasses out, I think she has a good chance to win rounds 2 and 3 here. So it's a difficult decision whether to pre-bet it or to live bet it, because I think Hughes is going to likely lose round one, get taken down. So you might as well wait till round one goes by, bet Hughes at like plus 600 for a small bet, and just hope that Pinheiro gasses out, because Pinheiro's never been out of round one in like 6 or 7 fights or something like that. So I have a little bit of Hughes here to pull off the late decision. What's up, Ozzy, on this fight for you?
I don't have anything too groundbreaking here. I think obviously the thing with Hughes is at range. She's usually looking to close the distance, and against Pinheiro, she has a lot of these judo throws. And the thing is, she has those forward throws where she's kind of throwing people head over heels. But I think that she could probably also hit some pretty easy trips and foot sweeps and things like that on Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes has kind of slow feet overall. Looking at the prop side of things here, I find it kind of interesting that the fight is kind of 50-50 to go to decision or not. With Pinheiro inside the distance being close to evens as well. Sam Hughes has shown to be, to take damage okay, I guess, even though that fight against Torres was stopped. But I think overall, Pinheiro, I think she could find herself in trouble because her control, not the best. Sam Hughes probably does try to get up off of takedowns. And, sometimes when you're a fighter, inexperienced fighter like Pinheiro, when you're getting all these opportunities to land either big strikes or big throws, and you continue to take them, that saps your gas tank away and leads to the thing. With judo, it's a very anaerobic sport where it's all about very short burst of activity. So I think that's why her 15-minute conditioning is probably not the best. But I'm not going to have anything on Sam Hughes here. Not a spot that I really want to risk. Or just being able to stay in the fight and making Nero wilt, because I don't really think that's Sam Hughes' game overall. So I'll probably be skipping this fight for sure.
And one last thought on this, the Sam Hughes decision only on DraftKings plus 250. You got to think if it gets to a decision, Hughes has a pretty good chance to win, considering Pinheiro has never won outside of round one. But that's enough for that fight. Next fight's in the featherweight division. We have Sean Soriano as the minus 280 favorite taking on Shaylian. I'm not going to pronounce the whole name. I'll just go with Shaylian or How are you gonna pronounce
Yeah,
this
yeah,
guy's name?
Shaylian,
There you go.
Shaylinian or Shaylian's rolls off the tongue a little bit better. So what is it? Minus 280 for Soriano, plus 240 on the comeback for Shaylinian. You know, Shilinian had that debut fight against Bao, which I think when you looked at the scorecards after, it was a little bit closer than I thought it was. Um, Shilinian, I just don't really know what his game is. I would assume he's looking to grapple a lot more. One thing when I was looking at this fight that I forgot is that Soriano for this fight is going back down to 145. He was in on short notice against Yagos and up a weight class, while Yagos is a very, very big lightweight. This fight, I'm not, I know some sharp guys that like the Soriano side. They just really like his striking and how he connects it. And Shalinian kind of just stays on the outside a little bit. He's kind of in and out. The only success I think he had against Bao is when he was clinching and holding on to him and closing the distance. But Soriano pretty good at cutting angles, staying off the cage, and has a pretty good left hook. So I think he should be able to use his lead hand, stay on the outside, and land some strikes here. But I think that I mean, Shalinian's jacked. He's huge, and while Soriano is pretty accurate and has hurt a number of his opponents in the past, I think for this fight I'm gonna be looking at this over or goes the distance because Shalinian to me I don't think he has too much finishing upside, with strikes or on the mat. And Soriano, although I know that he definitely wants to get come back in with a splash off that last fight and get a finish here, his conditioning to me when he's pushing the fight a lot is a little bit questionable. So I don't know how much finishing upside he has in the later rounds, where Shalinian I think did slow down versus Kulibao. So I kind of like that over or goes the distance at close to even money. And definitely going to be picking Soriano here. But I don't really favor him to finish this all too often, just because I think Shalinian is able to stay safe, able to probably clinch up, on some occasions and slow down Soriano.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with pretty much everything here. Um, I mean, the overs, I really don't see Shalinian finishing. I don't see much skill to anywhere in his game. And Soriano's a pretty decent defensive grappler despite getting submitted in his last fight. So I don't really think Shalinian's finishing at all. So the goes to distance being, almost even money or almost a pick 'em here is kind of weird because 50% of the finishing equity is probably on Soriano. I think that's wrong. So yeah, you got the right idea with the overs and the goes to distance here. Over 2.5 is still probably value, and I might even play that myself. Even though I don't bet overs because Shalinian, his grappling is just extremely mediocre. I mean, he was able to get some cage pushing against Bao, but wasn't able to really get many takedowns. Just kind of gave up after that first round. Honestly, maybe he looks better here coming off of his second UFC performance. But I was really unimpressed with what I saw from Chilean. And even though Soriano lost his last fight, he came in short notice, up a weight class, won round one, was hurting Yagos, and just kind of got caught with that Darce in round two. So I still think that Soriano is pretty capable of winning and covering here. I think he has the takedown defense to stop the takedowns and should win the striking pretty comfortably. So I agree with all of Ozzy's thoughts here, and that's going to move us along to the flyweight division where we have Cody Durden as the minus 161 favorite. We got Aori coming back at plus 141. And, pretty fun fight here, a flyweight. These guys are, both seem like pretty high action fighters. Durden was looking good in his last fight against Jimmy Flick before getting caught with that flying triangle. Pretty crazy outcome there. I think I was picking, maybe even betting Flick submission there, and I thought that was looking really bad. And then all of a sudden, flying triangle finish. But Aori's pretty good as well. I thought, I wouldn't go as far to say the guy's good, but he put up a good performance against Molina. Ozzy and I talked about this a few weeks back that he had a good, first 9.5 minutes of that fight before getting dropped at the very end of round two, and could have potentially been up 2-0 over Jeff Molina, who I think is a pretty decent, promising fighter. And Aori just seems tough. He knows how to come forward. He knows how to put up volume. He can wrestle a little bit, but the guys also look pretty bad when he gets taken down here. So Durden being that collegiate wrestler. You think he's probably going to hit some takedowns here, but the striking I think could go either way. Aori is extremely tough. He seems like he has good cardio. Durden's durability, I think, is kind of up in the air. It's a bit of a question. So I think Durden could start pretty well here, likely win round one, but I could see Aori coming back and winning the last two rounds and making it close. So I think this is close enough of a fight that I'll say it's dog or pass. I do think this one is going to be a decision as well, like Ozzy was saying for the last fight. And I think Aori has a good chance of coming back. But that's my thoughts on this one. What are you going with here?
Yeah, so all the action has been coming in on Durden. Multiple people that I speak to, like Durden, or, are on the fade China PI and all those things. But Durden, for me, I don't really like him at all. He's coming off the ACL surgery that he had in January. So I think he got cleared. I don't know, it's a 10-month comeback from ACL surgery, which is not too uncommon nowadays. But this is Durden's second fight down at 125, so he had to be off his feet for 3 or 4 months there, or 2 or 3 months, whatever it is. Now coming back down to 125, his gas tank incredibly questionable. He was in on short notice against Gutierrez, but did not have the weight cut to 125. Got a 2-minute break in the second round after getting hit in the nuts and still gassed horribly. I mean, the guy literally lays down the last like 50, 45 seconds of the fight because he's too tired, and is able to scrape by with a draw. Fortunate for him, even though that first round he didn't really do that much. So I don't trust the guy's cardio. If you look at his record, it's littered with kind of first round finishes. It's also littered with a bunch of guys that you can tell are very grappling deficient. Iori has some hilarious regional tape for you guys if you want to dig into it. So not that I find the guy that trustworthy, but in the interim, in like the year and a half, I think between his last like regional fight and the fight with Molina, I thought that he looked much better. He's pretty aggressive on the feet. He'll throw flying knees. He'll look to present his head, present himself in the pocket so he could slip and throw punches. Durden, don't like his jab, don't like any of the connective striking that he has. His wrestling is pretty strong. He'll look to get behind you, ride you down. But once it is on the ground, I don't really think he is that good of a forward thinking grappler. Like I think that a lot of times he's not ahead of his opponents, and just looks like an anxious guy to me overall. And when things are not going great for him, he kind of starts getting worried, and I think that taxes his cardio more so as well. So I don't think on the ground it's going to be a blowout for Durden. If it's not in the first like 2 3 minutes overall, even when he is on the ground, I don't think his submission game isn't anything to really write home about. He had flicks back pretty cleanly, didn't really set up any submissions, just looking to throw punches. And then on the feet, again, I'll reiterate some of his shot selection just really poor. I think he was patting himself on the back for all the strikes that he had quote unquote landed on Flick. But if you look back at that fight, a bunch of these punches are landing on Flick's arms. Flick is blocking all of them, and Cody starts like kind of running out of ideas. And then he eventually gets finished by a flying triangle. So the guy's down at 125 once again. If Iori can keep this fight on the feet for more than half the fight, I'd say, I think he's probably gonna knock Cody out. I know that Cody's super committed right now to this comeback fight, really wants to get a win, but I couldn't pay any juice on him at all. I think Aori will push the pace on the feet. He's a little bit, like I said, wild, so I would not be surprised at him getting wrestled here for the most part. But if it is on the feet at any point, I think that he is a much more accurate striker, throws much more strikes, and much more strikes that will do damage and look good in the judge's eyes. So I think Aori's the side here. I haven't bet it yet. I think plus 150 is probably the buy point. It hasn't gotten there. Every time it's gotten to plus 145, it's gone down a bit. So, and looking at the prop side of things, just really quickly, it's favored to go the distance. So, I mean, if you think that Iori's such a bad grappler, and which most do, and you think that Durden is such a good grappler and is going to be able to ground him so often, why is this so much favor to go the distance? I think if this goes the distance, or if Durden's not finishing Iori, or just completely stifling him, he's going to be in a lot of trouble on the feet in those second and third rounds, because he's a guy. If he doesn't complete a takedown, one, he sells out for him. He goes super hard for them, and if he doesn't complete the takedown, he starts questioning himself, no doubt. So I like Aori. I'll pick him here and potentially bet him if the line continues to increase.
Yeah, another decision only prop plus 150 for Aori there. Sounds like you would like that one as well. And that's going to move us along to the lightweight division where we have a very anticipated matchup. Ferris-Ziam minus 123, Terrence McKinney plus 103.
Yeah. So great matchup here. Two lightweights that have had some, I would say, pretty exciting fights overall. Taking out the Don Madge fight for Faraz, but for Ziam, a lot of people are high on him. He's done his this camp over at what's it called? Not Black Zillions. What's Henry Hoof's gym?
Stanford.
Stanford. I always forget their name. Stanford MMA. So I think he's been there for 6 or 7 weeks. Really, really good range striker. Ziam is just very, very well rounded. He's six behind his jab. He has good front kicks, good leg kicks, head kicks, and then once he is on the ground, whether he is on top or bottom, he is pretty good down there. If you look back at that Jamie Malarkey fight, he hit some really, really good sweeps that are setups overall. It's just, they're basically traps. So things that weren't lucky, they weren't given to him by Malarkey. It's just very good timing and just being a smart overall grappler by Ziam. On the other hand, McKinney, just a whirlwind of just strikes and techniques. The guy throws head kicks and then falls down and lands on his neck. Which, I mean, I've never seen a fighter like Terrence McKinney have a run like he's on currently at the moment. Because he's hitting all his all the strikes that he's putting out there are strikes that are that he knows. That he practices, that he's doing what he wants to do. It's not. I don't want to say it's lucky, because I feel luck is like when you're not like going for something and it just happens for you. And that's not the case with McKinney. McKinney's going out there. He's like, all right, I'm going to kick this guy in the head, or I'm going to launch this left hand, or I'm going to take this guy down, and then I'm going to bash his head in. So that's his strategy: bash guys' heads in, put out damage. In this fight, I just think that Ziam is more. He can mold into a fight much better than McKinney can. Overall, it's pretty hard to take Ziam down, even though he has been taken down by a number of guys. He has a pretty strong clinch. He moves pretty well on the feet. One thing that I am a little bit worried about is this is the small cage, and then you did see in that fight against Luigi that once Luigi just started going forward and kind of cutting off the cage a little bit, Ziam did walk into a few strikes. But the thing with McKinney is just the arc of his punches and things like that. I think it's pretty predictable, and it should be rather easy for Ziam to at least go in there with a mindset and knowing what to avoid. I can't believe that Frivola, after seeing what McKinney did, him on short notice, like your strategy is not to extend the fight. Stay away from initial exchanges and just look out for that left hand side. So ZM has a kickboxing background. I think he should be able to snipe at McKinney loading up on those left hands and kicks, be able to counter him. And then as the fight goes on, I think he should be able to chip away a bit more. I do favor this fight to go the distance, so I do like ZM inside the distance. I wouldn't go ZM uh KO only, because I do think he could possibly snatch up the neck of McKinney. I think he has some underrated grappling, and I do see a plus 800 for his submission line, which I think I'll probably have a little stab on. But I think Ziam overall should be able to stay out of trouble. His chin, I don't think is bad, and I think that with the help of Henry Hooft, I think they'll craft a good game plan and be able to stay in the fight with McKinney long enough for McKinney to start tiring away, and him to start landing the cleaner and more accurate strikes.
Yeah, McKinney's on quite a hilarious run right now. And if you go back and watch his fight against Sean Woodson, he was mostly grappling back in that fight. And he actually had some decent takedowns. He got a few back takes on Woodson. Really shows how much Woodson's defensive grappling has improved. But this guy has definitely fallen in love with the strikes in his past few fights. And I mean, the technique that I'm seeing is extremely wild, and he's open for counters in the pocket, but he's fighting guys in LFA that, aren't the highest level fighters, and he's able to nuke them with a few shots. And he's just, high rolled himself on 4 quick round one finishes. Like, Ozzy said, that Frivola fight, pretty embarrassing by Frivola, a veteran like him, to get starched like that in 7 seconds. But now we're getting some good betting opportunities on him. Vieira-Tate is a guy that Ozzy and I have been pretty high on throughout his run. He's been steadily improving. You can see it in his takedown defense, especially. The Malarkey fight showed really good improvements. Was a little bit concerning how he got rocked in round 3 versus Vendramini. Arguably got 10-8'd in that round, but we scraped away a majority decision there. Um, but I just think that Vendramini is actually a decent striker. He's got some pop. He's not an incredible fighter or anything, but the guy can hurt you with some shots, as we saw in the Pimblet fight, in his fight against Aori. So I actually think that, it's a pretty comparable matchup between those two guys. Um, because if Fair-Ziam can get this fight extended, if he can get past that first minute or two where McKinney's been getting all of his knockouts, I think that he's going to be pretty, in pretty good shape to win those later rounds. He's got more experience later in the fights, especially recently. And I just think that McKinney's, not really fighting to the best of his ability right now. Like I said, the guy is a pretty decent grappler. And if he were able to mix his grappling in with his strikes and settle down a little bit, he could be better. But I think that he's going to be falling in love with this first round knockout type of style, that the style that's got him really popular. I think he's going to come out hard here, and if he doesn't hurt Ziam and knock him out in the first 2 or 3 minutes, I could see him slowing down real badly, and Ziam getting that finish in rounds 2 or 3, like Ozzy was saying. So I like Ziam here. If the guy gets knocked out in round one, so be it. We're going to get another good spot to bet against McKinney in the future. But for this matchup, I think McKinney is solid enough to be able to avoid that early knockout and win the later fight.
Ziam. You mean
Yeah, what did I say?
Sam McKinney?
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, we're going with the Frenchman. So McKinney seems fun. I think he will maybe get a little bit of late action here. Hopefully, we can get maybe a pick 'em price on Ziam across all the books, or maybe even get Ziam as a even money underdog, something like that. So pretty fun fight on the prelims, and we're going to move on to another fun fight, women's strawweight division, where we have Loma-Godinez as the -170 favorite. Loma looked with me as the +145 dog, and I do have a bet on this fight. I missed the price on Loma, but I bet her +130. Up to +145 now, though, but I don't even like CLV. We're cool with that. And I just think that this fight is going to be taking place on the feet. I think that Lupi's grappling game is getting a bit overrated after smushing that bum Sylvia Juarez, 36-year-old strawweight with no UFC fights. Lupi did dominate her on the mat and tap her out, but I just think that was an extremely bad opponent, and I think that the market could be overrating Godinez's wrestling ability here, because I think Lupi could win the fight if she doesn't wrestle, though. I think if the woman stuck to mostly punches, tried to pump out a lot of volume, we have seen Loma struggle with the boxing defense. Sam Hughes was landing shots. And if you know Muay Thai well, you know that their fighters sometimes their fights don't have the most boxing in them. They're mostly clinching, kicks, knees, elbows. So their fighters aren't too skilled in the boxing range of things. And you can see that with Loma. She keeps her hands pretty low. She can eat punches at times. So if Godinez comes in with the right game plan to throw a high amount of punches here and to try to box Loma, I think that she does have a good chance at beating Loma. But I kind of think this fight will end up in the clinch. It will end up in those spaces where I think that Loma has an advantage. I think that she is the more skilled clinch fighter, obviously a wealth of experience in the clinch in her Muay Thai fights. As long as she doesn't go for too many throws here, she was able to hit some takedowns on Hughes. I think that wouldn't be the wisest decision here. I think that she should just try to keep it standing, keep it in the clinch, and she's nasty with knees in those clinch, and she's just really skilled at controlling those clinch from all those years of experience. So I know Loma's a little bit undersized for the weight class. Lupi does seem like a decent prospect, but I'm going to be going with Loma to win the clinch battles and win this 29-28 decision. I would be surprised if any other outcome besides one of these women winning 29-28. So what are your thoughts here, Ozzy?
Yeah, so I obviously completely disagree. Loma, if you look at all her fights, the girl gives underhooks up for free. And her main counter to giving up all the underhooks for free are those little foot sweeps, those little, when you're grabbing that ear because you're giving up that underhook and turning, and tapping the leg and getting on top. But when she is on top, has zero jiu-jitsu game. Literally, she took Angela Hill down, and then the next, 2 seconds later, she was in an armbar, and then 2 seconds after that, she was in a triangle. And this is against, again, Angela Hill. These takedowns that she does or she gets are of no substance. They just waste energy for her, waste time on the clock, more importantly for her. And I think once this fight, if once it does go into the clinch, because it will, Lupi's going to be able to scoop up those legs and double leg her pretty easily, pull her off the fence. I think the narrative and, looking at Godinez, I don't know how, a month ago, 2 weeks ago, I don't know how long ago it was when she fought Carolina, but Carolina's a giraffe. If that fight goes, 12 more seconds in the first round, it's GG, first round armbar for Godinez. And then if you look at the subsequent next two rounds, Godinez for sure was a little bit, I would say, tired. You could see she's breathing a little bit heavy in that second or third round. But even then, she's getting into the clinch, getting in on takedowns, spinning around to Carolina's back. And Carolina is such a giraffe that she's able to stay up. Godinez can't, hit those. And she's such a smart grappler, because sometimes she's going for these double legs and she's trying to use, those like reaps and trips and inside outside to trip Carolina down, but she was just having too much of a hard time. I think the tendency of Loma to just give up underhooks, give up her back, is going to make it easy for her to spin behind her, and be and get her to the ground eventually. And once this is on the ground, just there's a huge skill difference between these girls, and it's just not something that I think Godina is going to be able to, or excuse me, Loma's going to be able to catch up on. And then even at range, Loma, she's going backwards very often, always on the back foot, doesn't throw too many jabs, doesn't really, her leg kicks, a ton of naked kicks, even for a Thai fighter. So I think Godina is going to be able to have a bunch of opportunities to catch kicks, land her jab. I think she has the quicker hands as well. And again, on the ground, just a huge difference. And when they're in the clinch, which, like you said, is Loma's strongest point, she's giving up the best positions that you can have. And her only offense from there to recover are those trips. So she's definitely going to go for them. And Godinez is way more skilled in navigating and moving around her hips and legs to be getting caught with some of those trips. So I think Godinez gets her to the ground and puts some ground and pound on her, potentially stops her. I know some people are on that submission prop, but personally, now that it's above like minus 170, minus 165, not a bet that I'm probably going to make. I've considered it a lot, but it kind of stings to have backed Godinez when she was smashing Carolina and end up losing that more or less close decision. So I like Godinez here, and I think she's gonna be able to control the fight here.
Nice, nice. Glad we got one to disagree on after agreeing on the first couple fights. And I think we'll disagree on one or two more throughout. So we'll see who wins the head-to-head battle next week. But in the next fight, we got in the lightweight division, uh, we got Rafa Garcia minus 115, Natan Levy minus 105. This line has been kind of bouncing around between Pick'em, even money all week. And it's your turn to start this one out,
Yeah.
Ozzy.
Yeah, so I think this is a pretty interesting fight overall. Natan Levy only has six, fights overall, but I've heard a lot of good things about the guy. Is all I could say. I like his grappling game overall. I think some of these takedowns that he's getting in on. I think it's pretty interesting. Just overall his skill set for a guy who I thought was more of a karate guy when I was first watching him for his Contender Series fight, but very pleasantly surprised. I think he does some very nifty and intelligent things on the ground that makes it look. I don't know if he's credentialed, like actually has his jiu-jitsu black belt, but for me, he moves like a black belt on the ground. He has a very impressive top game and does a lot of the things that I like to see from a fighter when they are on the ground in terms of floating on top, finding guard passes, landing strikes here or there, and some of the control positions that he goes for. I think we're getting some anchor bias here on this line that's letting it sit at this like plus money range. I think this is something I've discussed with you in the past a little bit, but I think it's off of people saying, hey, Rafa Garcia was minus 300 against Chris Gruetzemacher, who's a veteran, UFC veteran. It was a close-ish fight, so how can he be even here? But I don't think that really holds true. One, that line was obviously incredibly wrong. People that laid that chalk are holding on to that the bit of success that he had via landing one left hook on Gritzmacher that rocked him. But the shot selection of Rafa Garcia is just terrible, in my opinion. I don't know how this guy trains with Whitman and all these other guys, because if you look at that Gritzmacher fight, he's spamming a left hook. He has no jab, never throws any jabs. When later in the fight, when he's entering the pocket, he's entering with forehead to forehead, like with his hands up just at his head, just walking into the pocket. Every time Gritzmacher throws any strikes or just gestures at Garcia at all, Garcia's flinching, he's putting his hands up, he's sinking into a stance, and what ends up happening, Gritzmacher starts banging the body, and for Levy, what's going to happen is it's going to be easy for Levy to get in on takedowns, because these karate guys, what are they best at? They're best at feinting. They're best at, coming into the pocket quickly, quick twitch movements. And anytime that you throw these punches at Rafa Garcia, he covers up, he sinks into a stance, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's looking at the floor, but it looks to me like he's looking at the floor. And it's going to be easy for you to just throw, a jab across, whatever, and then get into the clinch or shoot in takedowns on him. And Levy has a good array of takedowns. He could finish singles, doubles, trips off of them. I think he has some throws and some judo trips as well. And once he is on top, I think Rafa Garcia, he has some ground game, but I would say it's probably lower level in the UFC. Positionally, not very great. Not able to hold. He's getting top position on Gritzmacher, not really able to hold him down. His combate fights, Eric Gonzalez, Humberto Bandone, they're escaping a bunch of times on him as well. I think Eric Gonzalez he almost, decapitated him in the end of the first round because Rafa Garcia, his cardio, I don't know, it's kind of strange. He'll come out early in a round, look okay, and then completely fall apart. Against Nasrat, you saw the same thing that you saw against Gritzmacher, forehead to forehead, hands up, shell, in the shell. And, I mean, Nazareth is kind of like looking at him like, what are you doing? On multiple occasions, they're like just standing there, and Nazareth's just looking at him like, are you not going to do anything? And then just, hitting him in the body, hitting him in the head. And those are two fights that have happened in the last 8 months where he's ate a considerable amount of damage. So I like Levy here to finish Rafa Garcia. I'm not going to get too, I don't get too crazy though with the finish props. So I like that money line here at a close to even. I think once this is on the ground, whether he's on top or bottom, I think I like. And just to go into the grappling game of Garcia, I think if he is shooting on Levy, I think Levy's going to be able to reverse him or just not go to the ground. If you see some of the takedowns that Rafa Garcia is going for, he's a lot of times shooting in on the legs and having to finish with like trips on the backside and collapse the guys over. I think Levy has pretty good dexterity in those legs. I think he'll be able to limp leg out of some of these takedowns, get to the back position, hold him down, and then start putting on elbows, punches on him, and eventually hopefully progressing to a submission here.
Yeah, looking at the props for this one, Levy submission plus 460 FanDuel and Garcia knockout plus 650. I think if Garcia is winning the fight, it's via striking. And, we have seen Levy hurt. He did get rocked really badly, almost TKO'd in one of his most recent fights in LFA. Let me forget the gentleman's name. Ben
Rafa has
Lugo.
no power, man. He doesn't. This guy does not throw hard. Any punches that he lands are kind of like clubbing punches. If you see after that first exchange with Gritzmacher, none of those punches had any steam on them at all. So like I really, really, really do. And like I mean, he's going to war with these guys in Combate, and he's not hurting them at all. So I'd be really surprised. Even though Levy's chin does look a little soft at times, I'd be super. And this is a southpaw matchup as well. This guy Garcia was lost against Nazrat, and even Humberto Bandenay as a southpaw because he can't land that left hook as easily, which is his best punch. Very very difficult to land that lead left hook against the southpaw.
Um, yeah, I do think his chin is just so weak though that some punch could just put him out here. But yeah, I mean, if Garcia is winning, I think it will be by knockout. I think that if he starts landing strikes on Levy and he's out striking him, Levy's going to shoot takedowns, and there's a good chance that Levy just takes him down at will throughout the entire fight. I think he's the far superior jiu-jitsu fighter. Like Ozzy was saying, in a lot of Garcia's combate fights, the guy wrestles heavy, he goes for takedowns, and he's just fighting a lot of low-level grapplers. So sure, he was able to submit some of them, but I'm just not impressed with the guy's top game at all. His takedowns versus Gritzmacher weren't keeping him down at all. Gritzmacher was bouncing back up from them easily. And I think that Levy has shown pretty good cardio. That one fight that he got hurt versus Lugo, he was able to recover. He was able to gut out rounds 2 and 3 there. So it shows that he can, recover from some adversity. He can come back and win a fight that he was losing. And I think that I am impressed with his takedown arsenal. I saw him hit a good, very amount of takedowns in his LFA fights. And I think he should be able to out grapple Rafa Garcia here. He seems very good on the ground, heavy on top, like Ozzy was saying. So unless Levy gets trapped in the feet for long periods of time and knocked out here, I think that he's going to be winning the fight. So I think Levy money line combined with Garcia knockout could be like a way to secure guaranteed profit. But I mean that plus 460 sub line, that's looking
Okay,
pretty good as
James
well.
Krause. Okay.
That's looking pretty good as well. I mean, the difference in grappling level is it could be like 2 to 3 belts in this fight if you're looking for like a reference. So plus 460, not bad for a submission for a
And
guy who's going to be grappling.
there's a reach advantage here, right? I think Levy has maybe a 3 or 4 inch reach advantage here as well. So I just think the overall package of skills here that you're getting in Levy, although he is very inexperienced, I think that it's pretty solid. He's up at 155 now, so I think his cardio will be a bit better than it was in the past. Yeah, 4 inches of reach,
No,
and I just
I only see one. UFC stats says one. Who knows though?
on Tapology, I see 72 for Levy and 68 for Hoffa, but either way, Levy's a longer fighter. I think Hoffa, he has a good camp behind him. He is training hard. He obviously is on a 2-fight losing streak. So a third fight L will probably be curtains for him. So it's always uneasy to sometimes bet against those guys.
Nah, fuck that.
I have a joke here, but I'm not gonna say it. And yeah, so but I think Levy gets it done here.
All right, yo, DM Ozzy later to hear what that joke was. I'm curious myself. So next fight's going to be in the featherweight division. Really fun matchup here. Two guys that we're both pretty big fans of. We got Tucker Lutz taking on Pat Sabatini. Sabatini is currently minus 121. Lutz plus 101. A lot of action coming in on Lutz these past few days, and I think the line is about right where it's at. I think Sabatini being a slight favorite, minus 125, minus 130, is about right. Because I do think he is the better wrestler. He comes from, I believe, a Division One wrestling background. Probably a black belt in jiu-jitsu, training at EEFC Marquez MMA in Philly, which is the best gym there. That's where Sean Brady, Jeremiah Wells trains, and it's definitely the best gym in the Philadelphia area. Maybe even one of the best gyms in the entire country. It's really coming up, honestly. So, um, I have been a little bit underwhelmed with Pat Sabatini though in his UFC run. He dominated Connolly in the first 2 rounds of that fight, but then kind of made round 3 a little closer than it had to be. Maybe took the round off. I mean, he did secure rounds 1 and 2 extremely easily, so he was up 2018. Maybe he just wasn't in that great shape for that fight. And then he did have that scary moment where he got hurt on the feet or by Emmers, but you saw him get mounted there. You saw him be discombobulated for 20, 30 seconds. But then right when he got his wits back about him, he started getting a bite on that leg and gripped that nasty ankle lock. I mean, Emmers is just such a moron for
Heel hook. Heel hook.
oh yeah, he was going for a toe hold on Pat Sabatini. Meanwhile, he was in an inside heel hook, like the
Then
most devastating.
we said, you go back to that and you hear that I said, I guarantee you, or that it was likely that Emmers is gonna think that he is the better or equal grappler, and is gonna get him in trouble. And what
Yeah.
happened?
And
What
and Ozzy
happened?
Ozzy
What happened?
specifically said the words, "Pat is well versed in leg locks."
And Jamal
Um,
Emmers is clearly not, because I'll tell you right now, you say he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, all this stuff. Anyone with any experience knows that you should not go for a toe hold when a guy's got your inside heel
inside heel
like
hook.
that.
I mean, that's I
Insane.
mean,
That was crazy. That was
there's a good
crazy.
chance that, like, Emers is never the same after that fight. I mean, he
It
got
was
his knee
crazy.
torn apart,
That's one of the
and,
worst
that
decisions I've seen in a UFC fight this year.
yeah, but, getting back to this matchup, Lutz has impressed me as well. He had some fights at 155 in the Contender Series. He's dropping down to 145. He looked, pretty solid in his last fight against Kevin Aguilar. Not the highest level opponent, but he got the job done. I think after the fight, though, he said, he was disappointed with himself that the judges gave Aguilar round three. So, this guy's a good round winner, in my opinion. He can wrestle himself. He can smash that calf kick with leg kicks, and he's got decent boxing as well. So I think the guy has high output. He's got good cardio. He's got wrestling ability. So I think he's going to win a lot of UFC fights. But he is facing another guy who is a really skilled wrestler. So he's not going to have that same ability to hit takedowns as easily as some of his past opponents. And I do think that the striking favors Lutz, by a good margin here. I think that like 70% of the striking exchanges will be going his way. I think that calf kick could really pay dividends late in this fight with shutting down some of Sabatini's wrestling. So the only reason I'm not fully endorsing Lutz here is because I didn't like the way he got taken down by Sherrod Blackledge. He got double legged in that fight, and I think that Sabatini could hit some takedowns early on here. Sabatini is definitely a fast starter. And I think that there's a good chance that Sabatini gets a takedown, wins round one. But as the fight goes on, Lutz is going to start being able to stuff those takedowns, do that calf kick damage, win the striking and boxing exchanges, and pull off the 29-28 decision here. So I'm looking to live bet Lutz here. I think the line where it's at now is about right. If you're betting anybody pre-fight, I guess it would be Sabatini, because I expect Lutz to be, plus 150, plus 170 after round one. So those are my thoughts here. Really fun matchup.
I got a lot of thoughts about this fight. So, Lutz, he's okay. I think, I liked him in that Kevin Aguilar fight. He's very well rounded. He's a big featherweight overall. He's got, just a weird looking body. He's got like a super wide back, very long legs, and just overall pretty durable. And overall smart. I think he uses all the skills and all the rules, right? All the things you could do in MMA to mix it up pretty well. But, looking back at a lot of his fights, I just feel that there's tons of opportunities here for Pat Sabatini to be in this fight. I'll tell you for right away, though, there is sharp money, very money that I respect on Tucker Lutz, but this is at, plus 135, plus 130, plus 140. Right now, we're getting to even money on that side, and I'm getting interested in the Pat Sabatini side. I'll tell you, I'll go to the Lutz side. Looking at his striking, a lot of his kicks, even though I think he does have some Muay Thai background, are naked kicks. Check out that Kevin Aguilar fight. Kevin Aguilar counters him on multiple occasions, hits him with left hooks. Catches, kind of grabs the legs a little bit, but just a lot of these kicks are naked. And as someone who has made, like, I won a bunch of fights off of catching kicks, I'll tell you that Pat Sabatini is ready to catch a lot of these kicks and transition them into takedowns. And I don't think that Tucker Lutz just stops doing that at all. I think that is just a tendency that he has. I think that's like a filler that he has when he is on the feet, because when you see him, does not throw very many jabs, is more of a blitzer when it comes to throwing strikes. And I think that that goes into the hands of people that want to just, okay, close the distance on him when he is throwing these punches out. On the side of Pat, I think that some of the striking for Pat is a little bit, I think it's a little bit undersold, because he is not like a kind of like a guy, let's say, that we'll maybe look at later on, like Hani Yahya, who he's kind of like coming out of his stance a lot, like chasing takedowns all that much, and not keeping his frame and keeping his hands up. Pat, whenever he is throwing punches, he's got his hands up on the back end. He's throwing in combination. He has some good kicks too. I think this guy did do some karate back in the day, so he'll throw out some calf kicks as well in his own right if this is extended on the feet. But overall, I think that he'll be able to. Lutz is not a pressure fighter. at all. So I don't think he's going to be putting Sabatini on the back foot very much. So what I think is going to happen is Sabatini's going to be going forward. Lutz is going to throw one of those kicks. Sabatini's going to take him down. And then from there, let's see what happens because Lutz I do think is pretty smart overall on the ground. I think that he knows he is at a ground disadvantage here. So I think if it does hit the ground, he is going to look to stay safe. Probably scoot to the cage, get his shoulders there, and start to get up. But in all his fight or most of his fights, he looks to grapple. He looks to shoot takedowns and break up the pace of the fight. I think when Kevin Aguilar started coming forward on him, Lutz is like, all right, like I'm much bigger than this guy. If you look at that fight, he's way bigger than Kevin Aguilar, and he shoots in on those takedowns, completes them pretty easily, and he knew he had that in his back pocket in those second or third rounds, so he went to it pretty often. Same thing against Blackledge, even though Blackledge did take him down in his own right. Blackledge, super skinny guy, no, doesn't deadlift or squat at all from what it looks like to me, and was pretty, and Lutz was able to get in on his hips pretty easily. But you see that Cody, what is it named? Cody Gibson, Chase Gibson, whatever his name is, the first Contender Series fight he had, Gibson ends the fight on his back from like a very, very simple transition. And Pat is tenacious. I think, some people are like, oh, Lutz has the cardio advantage and all that. I don't, even though Pat slowed down a little bit in that Conley fight, I do think it was a case of UFC jitters. You go into a fight where you've never had a UFC fight. You're going into your first fight. Or your second fight since or it's just a packed arena, all those things, and all the anxiety. I think that did cause him to slow down a little bit more, but I think that he's able to push the fight more, especially if it's grappling. I just think that Lutz in all his fights, there's grappling. In every single one that he's fighting real guys, so I think there is going to be grappling here. I think Sabatini is going to be able to take him down, and I think on the feet when Lutz is throwing strikes, they're just not great strikes that are that are really going to stymie Pat Sabatini. I think Pat is significantly better than Kevin Aguilar and all these other guys that Lutz has been fighting. But I think it's a close fight. But now where it's at now, I think there is value soon opening up on Sabatini because I don't give Tucker much of a chance to finish Pat. I just don't think he has the power or overall output in the shot selection that is going to be able to stop Pat. And I do think that Pat is going to be able to once he does get his hands around Lutz and does get him to the ground. If he does get good positions, I do think that he is very live to potentially find a finish. But I do favor this fight to go distance. The over I think is a good bet, and I think it's going to be a super fun fight. But I'll pick Pat here. I'll let this line keep coming in, and if it comes in, a good deal more, I'm gonna be on the Philadelphia kid.
Yeah, I agree with the overplay. I'm not too impressed with Lutz's power either, but I think you're overrating Sabatini's striking a little bit, and I'm pretty confident Lutz is going to win those exchanges. So a fight that we're disagreeing on here, and this card might not be the greatest, but like looking at these last four fights we just talked about, and this next fight we're about to talk about, I mean that's five good fights in a row. I mean we're all pretty invested and interested in these, so I mean this card has got some sneaky good matchups. Next fight, bantamweight division, Adrian-Yanez as the considerable minus 310 favorite, taking on Davy Graham plus 260. And you start this one
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, so Yanez is back here. Really, really good prospect. But you look at these four opponents, five opponents that he's fought. Let's say the last four opponents, none of them even close to the level of Davy Grant. Yet he is the biggest favorite I think that he's ever been, even a bigger favorite than he was against Gustavo Lopez, which is very, very
Nuts.
interesting. What do you mean not?
No, I said nuts.
Yeah, nuts.
Like that.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, overall, Davy Grant, though, I get it. He got his jaw broken by Martin Day. He was getting pieced up a little bit by Jonathan Martinez. But overall, Grant, uh, the way that he throws out offense there, it one cuts exchanges down. Is in he's typically or a lot of times getting the last say when he is throwing back with people. And you saw Yanez, uh, I don't know. The Costa fight was interesting to me because what it looked like to me is that Yanez was not really finding the timing or comfortable with the counters very much, especially in that first round. And I think in a fight against Davy Grant, if that's the case, and you can either only lead or throw back yourself, I think it could pose some problems for Yanez because Davy, I think, will you before in, like, let's say the Marlon Vera fight, the Jonathan Martinez fight, he was using his striking to kind of just get more respect overall. And was not looking to kind of like blend it as well. I think the Martin Day fight is actually a good comparable where you saw that Davey would land some good punches and stuff and throw back in exchanges, but was looking primarily to get the fights to the ground. And I think here is that's probably what he should be looking to do as well. Overall, I think Grant, he is a bit hittable. His head is pretty big, and Yanez does have some punches that just find the button really well. You saw in that Gustavo Lopez fight how he's moving his head off the center line and countering him pretty easily. But here, I think the money pushing the line up is definitely opening up value on the Grant side because I thought what was the opener? The opener was more in the 240, 250 range. I think that is much more appropriate. Yana is about 70%, more or less. When you're, pushing above this minus 300 number on that side, you're kind of giving no real, no, not much uh upside for Grant to win like a decision and kind of get this fight to the scorecards. Like they're pricing Grant decision and inside the distance almost equally. I'm seeing plus 600 on one book for Grant inside the distance. And, Giannis is tough. I don't think that, Grant is super likely to finish him, but it's not like it's hard to hit Adrian Yanez. What's his name?
And Grant has won
Yeah,
decisions by out grappling people too.
yeah, yeah. So on just both on both sides of the aisle, I think there's considerable opportunity for Grant, and he's able to okay, maybe first round, just strike and stuff like that, and then the next round, okay, I just grapple, and vice versa. So Grant, his grappling game has always impressed me a little bit. I always thought, okay, this guy's a pretty good grappler for a British guy. So I think that he's the side here. I do think that Giannis has the jab that will affect Grant a bit. So I think if he does have a hard time in this fight, it's because Yanez establishes that jab. But I think that it's gonna be a close fight overall. And I'm thinking about the over, but I don't know. These guys are gonna be banging it out. But the
Yeah.
minus 160 over is pretty enticing.
Yeah, that's over 1.5. Yeah,
Oh, one and a
it's
half, yeah.
pretty rare for a bantamweight men's fight to be 1.5. But I think it's gonna have a lot of chaotic moments, just like Giannis's last fight does, just like Davy Grant's past few fights have as well. Those have been high intensity, high action fights. But yeah, a lot of props that have some value here. Grant decision plus 500, Grant by submission plus 1400. I mean, I could see this fight going in a lot of different ways. Giannis's last fight against Costa was, impressive and worrisome at the same time. This guy was kind of thought of as, a counter puncher, a guy with some good power, and he didn't really, make reads that well when Costa was throwing that jab. I mean, Costa was just snapping that jab in his face over and over again, and it took Yanez. I mean, I don't even know if Giannis actually started to ever fully adapt to it. It just seemed like Costa slowed down. Like he really, really slowed down. I originally thought that the body work of Giannis made Costa slow down, but Giannis didn't even start digging to the body until like the second round. Costa slowed down on his own right. He just couldn't sustain that pace. And that unorthodox, high volume, janky style of Costa gave Giannis a lot of issues. And you know who has another janky, weird style? It's Davy Grant. He's got that weird looping punches style. He, boxes just so unorthodox. I mean, you can see this guy's striking is just so unique. No one else in the UFC boxes like this guy does. So, um, It is worrisome that he got dropped by Day and Martinez, like Ozzy was saying, but I don't think that Yanez has that one punch, knockdown type of power. We saw him really break down Costa with that jab, with that body work of his, and did get a nasty knockout there. But I think that that's going to have to happen to Grant here as well. He's going to have to get broken down over time instead of just one shot putting him out. But if Grant is getting beat up on the feet, like Ozzy was saying, the guy's a pretty solid grappler. He can hit takedowns. He outgrappled Marlon Vera to a 30-27 a few years ago. He had some top time and takedowns on Vera when the fight wasn't going his way in the rematch recently. So I think that Grant could make this fight close in the feet, and I think he's the better grappler overall, much better wrestler. And we really haven't seen Yanez tested too much in the grappling. I think who did he fight? Tony Gravely back in LFA went the full 5 rounds. No, it was Miles
Miles
Johns.
Jones.
Um, yeah, those guys, similar analogs for some reason. But yeah, he got pushed against the cage a lot in that fight. He got taken down. Um, he just doesn't really have the highest output at times as well. That was a concern of mine in his recent fights. That he kind of is searching for that knockout. He doesn't have the most consistent volume throughout the full 5 minutes of a round. So I think Grant is extremely live here, plus 260. You might as well wait though, because that action on Giannis is probably going to keep coming in. The parlays are going to be made with all the chalk, and we might even get Grant up to plus 300 by the time fight night comes. So, really fun fight here. Hell of a fight to kick off the main card. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so Grant, even though he has gotten dropped on a number of occasions, never been officially knocked out. A bunch of four of his losses are by submission. And Yanez 3-3 record in decisions. So that means he went to decision 6 times. Three of those decisions were split decisions. So this fight goes deeper into towards the scorecards. Grant has a ton of rounds under him in the UFC, and I think it's been shown that. So I think there's a little bit of a false flag also being thought of seeing Yanez do that sick comeback against Costa. That, oh, this guy, if this fight goes to scorecards, like, he's a lock. This, all that. And I don't think that's the case at all, because basically, Yanez took the whole round off in round one. He didn't do anything. He didn't do much coming back. So you had a lot of that energy saved up. So I think if this goes to the decision, potentially Davy Grant, wins this.
All right, that's going to move us on to the next fight, women's flyweight division. Probably the fight I'm looking forward to the least on the entire card. I'm going to spend a very short amount of time on this one. And we have Talia Santos minus 350, Joanne Calderwood plus 285. I'm sticking with Calderwood instead of Wood. But, I just think that Santos is going to win a decision here. She probably does have the better wrestling, or definitely does have the better wrestling. Calderwood just tends to get stuck on her back for long periods of time, goes for arm bars, goes for, bullshit submissions, and she just gets stuck on her back for, 2-3 minutes almost every time she gets taken down. And with the arsenal of takedowns that Santos has, she's probably going to do the same here. Calderwood should win the striking exchanges just because she's so high output, but I just don't trust Calderwood to keep the fight standing, and I think that Santos is going to win the fight via decision by mixing in some takedowns and out grappling her. So, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I mean, Santos looked great in that fight against Roxy, super aggressive, very well rounded, mixed it up pretty well. Here I think that Calderwood, obviously, I think, she needs to keep it on the feet because she is not much of a grappling threat off of her back. And I do think that there's some potential if she's able to dig underhooks, keep this, keep Santos off of the hips and the legs here, which she couldn't in that fight against Lauren Murphy, where I guess she got grounded and almost 10-8'd at one point. But Calderwood, very, very good conditioning, good cardio. She'll come after you in the third round. So if Santos is working very, very hard in one or both of the first 2 rounds, and you potentially get a split round in one of those, I do think that I would favor Calderwood potentially in the third round if she's able to stop some takedowns. So it's a tricky spot. I see some people that are higher on Calderwood. I see some people on the other side. I think that I'll have a stab on her. Just like last week, he's plus 300 women's MMA dogs. I'm not going broke, and that's not going to be what kills you. So I think here there is some potential. areas where Calderwood is better, primarily in the volume on the feet, and with elbows, and just some of those things that I don't think Santos has dealt with too much. A lot of the girls that she has fought have been low level athletes and not people that are not really trying to hurt her all that much. And I do think that Calderwood kind of nasty. If you look, Molly McCann, Jillian Robertson, Roxanne Modafferi, maybe three of the most harmless girls at 125 in terms of damage and strikes. So
How dare you?
I'll
They'll
take a
they'll
stab.
whoop your ass, bro.
No chance. I'll take a stab. I'll take a stab at Joanne and call it a day. But just a small one.
Yeah, plus 460 for Calderwood decision. Not bad. I don't see her finishing this one. So, um, next fight is going to be in the men's bantamweight division, a fight that was booked before. We have Kyung-Ho Kang as the minus 115, 115 favorite, Hani Yahya minus 105. And this is a fight that we did talk about before. I'm going to put a link in the description around this fight and the timestamps of where we talked about this fight
Yeah.
for the first time. We had a little bit more of an animated discussion, but the odds have changed a good amount. So we're going to, give our brief thoughts on this one, and you can start this one off.
Yeah, so I mean, when this fight was booked 3 months ago, right? I think early August or the end of July. Hani, I think back then when I bet him, and I bet him for a considerable amount, was close to plus 120. Now minus 110, minus 105 everywhere. I just think this is a fight where Kang Ho Kong. You look back at his last few fights, the guy lay and pray master. I mean, not even a lay and pray master, just laying and praying, not doing any damage, not doing anything on the ground. He's all now 2-year layoff as well. He's coming in against a guy who actually has grappling offense, on him. Look, he's fought Guido Canetti, Ishihara, Brandon Davis, Lou. I mean, a bunch of these guys, like he's winning split
Bottom of the barrel.
decisions, bottom of the barrel guys, winning split decisions. Again, I'll tell you guys, Hani Yahya is the best under 155 grappler there's ever been in the UFC. The best, hands down. No one better than him. Uh, you know,
I don't support that.
and he loses is because he's winning so clearly in the beginning that he tires himself out and then loses in the third round. That's what happens to Hani Yahya. If you look back at all his fights, Joe Soto fight, the Simone fight, even though Simone fight was kind of back
Barcelona.
and forth, the Barzola fight, it's just crazy, But this guy's really, really good with submissions. Obviously, he can heel hook you. He can squeeze your neck. He can rip your arm off. He can do all that stuff. Kang Ho Kong doesn't do anything. He's on the feet. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He has no jab. He is free. The leg kicks to leg kick him is free, which I'm guarantee you Ronnie Yahya is going to be original time. He was at ATT, so I don't love that, but I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. But I think that Hani is able to. He's got pretty good judo trips and and reaps inside that I don't think Kang Ho Kong has really dealt with too much. And I just don't think that Kang Ho Kong's active enough. Like he just doesn't do anything. Hani has his striking has been getting better. I think marginally, and I think he's been improving. And on the other hand, I think Kang Ho Kong has gotten worse. I remember when I watched him against Tanaka, I was like, oh man, this guy's gonna be a good prospect. Nope, did not happen. I think he was going to war with Guido Canetti more or less. 3 years ago. So I like Hani here still at this pick and price, not as much as I liked him obviously when I was getting him at 6% less, right, 45% as opposed to like 52% or 51% now. But I still like him for a bet here. I think he's able to push the pace on Kang, and if he fights intelligently at all, he's able to rack up points, make it very clear to the judges that he's working. Kang Ho Kong's a freaking model to be. This guy's not, about this life. And Hani's gonna squeeze this guy's neck eventually, is my prediction.
So I agree with some of what Ozzy said there. I just think I'm not as confident in him in Yanni as Ozzy is because um, I think he did bring up Kang's recent strength of schedule, but you also got to kind of point to Yaya's past 4 wins: Briones, Doan, Sanders, Rodriguez. I mean, that could be even lower level than the other guys. But still,
Finish them. Finish them.
Hey, split. I mean, what about Kyung-Ho Kang? You forgot to mention this. Split decisions in his past 4 decisions. He's
Dude, this guy, what's his? What was his record in decisions is not good. Everybody talks about how Hani Yahya slows down. This guy Kung Ho Kong is like 4-5 in decisions, and he gets these split decisions. I don't know how. This guy doesn't do anything. Nothing.
Yeah, he does. He does do virtually nothing. I mean, takedowns, lay and pray. The referee was warning him tons of times in the Brandon Davis fight.
He got stood up from top side control.
He was getting his legs smashed by Brandon Davis there as well. I think both guys will be able to land calf kicks in this fight. Kang has thrown a lot of calf kicks, and I think that Yahya could get caught with some of them. It's really going to be a battle of who can start getting them off first, maybe. And Kang is a guy who just relies on his own wrestling and his own grappling to win. And I do think that Yahya is the better overall grappler. And it's just hard to imagine Kang looking like the favorite in this fight when his typical path to victory, grappling, is probably not going to be there for him. I mean, even if Kang gets a takedown, I don't think that he's going to keep it for long. I think Yahya is going to be scrambling, sweeping, maybe even submitting him from the bottom position. And the only way I can see Yahya losing this fight is getting stuck on the feet for long periods of time and getting that calf kick, maybe getting lit up with some punches. But Kang, not a hard hitter, not a high volume striker. Yaya's chin would have to have gone significantly downhill for him to get finished by Kang here. So anytime the fight's not going Yaya's way on the feet, I think he should be able to hit those level changes and out grapple. And as long as Yaya's cardio keeps up for the full 15 minutes, he should be good to win the fight via decision or submission. And the last time we did see Yahya go the full 15 was against Barzola. Sure, he slowed down after winning the first 2 rounds, but Barzola, significantly better fighter and better grappler, I would say, than Kang. So, got to cut Yahya a little bit of slack there. And he did survive to make it to a draw decision. So, I'll be siding with Yahya here as well. Not quite as confident in Ozzy, but I'm still going to be picking him. And that's going to move us along to the co-main event. Extremely fun fight in this co-main event. We have Sean Brady as the -158 favorite, Michael Chiesa as the +138 dog. And, I'm a big fan of both of these guys. A little bit less of a fan of Chiesa after that last fight. We were definitely on him against Vicente Luque, and it looked like things are going well. He got the double leg takedown. He was in side control. Luque gave up his back. He seemed to be kind of panicking at first. And then, Michael Chiesa went for 2 dumb rear naked choke attempts with only 1 hook in, allowed Luque to scramble out, got caught in that Darce, and, tapped to a Darce with no leg control. And I took that as a sign that he kind of wilted there. He kind of saw a way out of the fight. It wasn't going his way. And I think that, possibly that could translate here. I mean, he's fighting another big, strong, good grappler in Sean Brady. Probably the first guy at welterweight who Brady might be looking to take Chiesa down. A lot of Chiesa's opponents at welterweight were former lightweights, RDA, Diego Sanchez, Neil Magny definitely being the best win at his welterweight run. But Neil Magny's been taken down and out-grappled by lots of guys throughout his career. I think Sean Brady would be a pretty significant favorite over Neil Magny in the -200 range. And Brady's just been looking better and better at each fight. I still think that he isn't quite proven enough to deserve -160 here, though. I mean, I am going to be picking him to win the fight. I envision Sean Brady getting his hand raised. I just can't endorse, betting him at 60% or higher versus Mike Chiesa, who Chiesa is going to be Brady's toughest opponent to date. Definitely his highest profile name. And Brady has been looking really good lately. His cardio has been looking good, finishing guys in the second and third round. His top game is really strong. I just think that Chiesa's main game here of being able to grapple and wrestle is going to be shut down largely by Brady being a strong, athletic, good defensive grappler. So I'll be picking Brady to win a decision here. I don't see this one finishing. I think it would be pretty unlikely for a finish to happen here. So maybe the overs and the goes the distance at plus money. Goes the distance plus money here. I don't understand that really. Fight starts round 3 -150. Why is it so low? So maybe you can share some insight on that. What are you thinking here?
I've been going back and forth in this fight, and I've been trying to, because I'm like, man, there has to be some opportunity here to make some money. And I was just looking at Chiesa's career, and I've been a big. I mean, Chiesa goes into my Hall of Fame for the Rafael dos Anjos fight. Obviously, just amazing performance by him there. But he's fought 4 fights or 5 fights, I guess, at welterweight. Yeah, and just he strike output in none of those fights is large. Uh, he gets multiple takedowns in all those fights except for the Vicente Luque fight, which he gets obviously finished off of that one takedown. And coming in here matching up against Sean Brady, the thing is Brady is just way more damage focused and looking to put strikes on you and go for submissions and do all these things than all these other guys that Chiesa has fought. People, I think, try the thing how people try to handicap these fights, and I think it's difficult for them because they see a guy Vicente Luque, they see a guy Neil Magny, Rafael dos Anjos, and they don't give because these guys have long elongated UFC careers. They don't give enough credit to a person like Sean Brady, because Sean Brady is much younger in his fight career. But this guy has gone far in fights. He has, close to what 15 fights now, and I think him fighting any of those guys, I think that Brady is in there. Like I think Sean Brady versus Vicente Luque would be a scrap. I don't think that Vicente would be that heavily favored over Brady. And the thing with Chiesa is this guy slows down too much in some of these fights. You see, even in that Rafael dos Anjos fight, yeah, he gets these takedowns in the second and third rounds, but he's considerably tiring. And the thing with Dos Anjos is he did not really have get up ability or much of a bottom game. So he's not able to take advantage of that conditioning. And same thing with Neil Magny. He's just so skinny and not too strong that Chiesa was able to hold him down. But I think it was in like that fourth round, fifth round. Chiesa said he's like, man, I was super tired going into that and yada yada yada. And I was like doubting myself. I think Chiesa a little bit of a mental midget, makes some bad decisions, at some points in fights. Clearly in the Vicente Luque fight, he made a bad decision. And he kind of gave up there once he got caught in that choke because there's no way that, if you're a good grappler, you go down into your half guard, you have to know one that the guy's going to go for a Darce, and you have to know what your defenses are. And he didn't really hit any of them. I think he should have been able to bridge, and loosen up that choke a little bit. But to go on the Sean Brady side, overall on the feet, I think that he's going to be able to pursue Michael Chiesa pretty well. Chiesa, as soon as that fight started against RDA or against Luque, he's running a whole marathon there, circling around. He's never, not that he's never fought in the Apex because obviously, or he has not fought in the Apex, but I think he has some experience in the small cage. But I think that he hasn't had any experience of late in that small cage. I think it'll be much easier for Brady to cut the cage on him. He's got a dynamite left hook. I think he's got some good body kicks. I think he throws to the body well with his hands as well. And I think that Chiesa, his best takedowns are coming from the clinch with those very, very long arms. But I think that in the clinch, Brady should be able to stay in good position, not give up those takedowns very easily. And I think later in the fight, I think in the second or third rounds, I think that you'll see Sean Brady on top of Chiesa. And once he is on top of him, I think this is going to be bad news for Chiesa. So as this week has been going on, I've been growing more confident in Sean Brady. I am always cognizant of trying to not lay too much juice. So I'm trying to get this under minus 145 because at 60%, I think that's a little bit that's asking for a lot from Sean Brady. But I think that just the damage overall, just the damage. It's just the Chiesa, you've never seen him. He doesn't throw ground and pound on the feet. He doesn't land all that much. He doesn't throw a lot of volume out. And I think that Brady has just too much of an advantage there with the strikes that will accumulate. That should leave him as the victor in some way, shape, or form. I'm not going to get too much into the prop side of things because I think it's a toss up, like you said, whether it goes distance or gets finished. But I like Brady money line here under minus 150.
I mean, I'm leaning a little bit heavier towards goes the distance. I think it could be value there at plus money. And yeah, good
Yeah,
points about the damage. I mean, one of these guys just hits so much harder than the other. Chiesa doesn't land ground and pound. He's going to be have to out grapple Brady for like 7,
yeah,
8, 9 minutes to win
not
this
gonna.
fight, and that's going to be a tough task.
I just don't think it's gonna happen, man. Brady's very well schooled. He comes from a really, really good gym, and he's been training for a long time and a lot. I think that guests is flying all around. He's doing this commentary work, all this stuff, and a lot of these a few of these matchups that he's gotten, were good matchups. The RDA one, nobody saw it at the time. That was a good matchup for him. The Magny fight, obviously a good matchup for him. And then he fought Luke, who Luke gets taken down. Sometime decent matchup for him, but even then he couldn't win that fight. So.
And one last thing, very important here. One of these guys has a tattoo of a tiger. The other guy has a tattoo of him choking a tiger. So make sure you do your research and realize who's who. But I'm going with the guy who's choking the tiger. And that's going to bring us to the main event. Extremely weak main event. I mean, I am so not looking forward to this fight at all. Women's bantamweight division. Uh, Ketlin Vieira -115, Misha Tate -105.
My turn, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I watched that. I've watched that Misha Tate fight a few times.
Of the Renault fight?
The Misha Tate Renal fight a few
Oh,
times.
you
Uh,
sicko.
yeah, but I mean, it's the only relevant tape that you could get for Misha Tate, and it just, I mean, she looked like the same girl from before to me overall. She is tenacious. She is in good shape overall. And she, knows where her strengths lie. Even in her interviews this week, she's saying, "Hey, I don't think I'm gonna win the whole fight, but eventually, I'm gonna get the win." Yada, cliche kind of stuff. Looking at Catlin, the issue here for me to back Tate is that Catlin overall, I think on the feet is actually, I think, a little bit better than Misha Tate. Misha Tate, just when she's in her
Definitely.
stance, she's like very, very bladed, trying to like pull out this jab and just land this right hand. If you see how Marion Renault approaches that fight, she's able to circle away from her right hand, at will. Misha Tate isn't able to land too many good strikes at all. And then, she's diving in on the legs, and then she has to grind the fight. Whereas Catlin, I think if she wants to stand at range with Misha Tate, I think she'll be able to land more than her. I think she'll be able to be more active, and mix up the punches better. But it's just a matter of one, Catlin, missed weight her last fight. Slows down a lot, right? So, you're thinking of her in the fourth and fifth rounds against Misha Tate, who I don't think is going to go away. I do think is here to, I don't think she's going on a title run, but I think that is her plans. She's here to win these fights, and I think that if Catlin doesn't get one of these submissions on Tate early, I think she could be in some trouble because she definitely slows down in these later rounds. When she is on her back, she's not really trying to get up all that much. She does go for some submissions, which. I think maybe she could, lock up Misha a little bit. I don't know what Misha's deep ground game goes as far as if she's getting, tangled up with like leg locks and things like that, which I know that Catlin does go for on occasion. Catlin does have a decent camp down there in Brazil. I saw some pictures that Pinheiro is down there as well, but they have a good collection of training partners. On the women's side, men's and women's side. So I saw there was a considerable amount of females there as well. But yeah, I just think that she'll Misha Tate's takedown defense not very proven. In through her whole career, right? Raquel Pennington took her down. Holly Holm take? No, Holly Holm didn't take her down.
No.
No, but Holly Holm was able to defend a bunch of takedowns. But Sarah McMahon took her down. Obviously Rousey, Kat Zingano. She gets taken down. So I think if Catlin's able to push her against the fence, get in on these double leg takedowns early on, she should be able to take her down. But I think that Catlin in the beginning is going to try and just box her face off. But I don't really have too much of a lean here. I do feel like a sissy because I do like pick 'em fights, and I always feel bad when I don't pick a side. But I think I'm gonna just stay away from this, not take another main event L. But if I was forced to pick a side, I do think I'd take the Ketlin Vieira side because I think that it's gonna be difficult for Misha to get offense going without the help of Vieira.
Yeah, I know I said I wasn't like interested in this fight, but I did do, a good amount of tape and, looked into it a little bit. And I got to lean Vieira as well. I mean, I was kind of picking Renau in the fight against Tate. So, I mean, I feel like it would be kind of an embarrassment not to pick Vieira here as well. I mean, Tate looked good. I mean, Renau probably the easiest matchup in the division, but I mean, Tate, her physicality, her cardio, she was throwing ground and pound, eventually got that finish. I mean, she looked good. Um, she looked completely rejuvenated from that long layoff. But you got to think that she really hasn't been hit that hard since the layoff as well. I mean, Renal maybe landed one or two right hands and Tate ate them, but I mean, Vieira is going to be hitting pretty significantly harder than Tate. So if the fight stays at boxing range, I do expect Tate to be uncomfortable for Vieira to be winning those exchanges. Vieira had some pretty competitive striking exchanges with Sajara Eubanks. I think Eubanks is kind of underrated as a striker, and Vieira was able to win that fight via mixing in the takedowns as well. Some trends I'm noticing with Vieira though is she loves going with that body lock outside trip takedown. That's her go-to outside trip. She goes that for almost all of her takedowns. I also noticed that in her past two fights, she immediately tries to pressure her opponents and get them up to the cage. Both Yana and Sajara, she kind of charged forward right away and was able to get some cage push time. But the Yana Kunitskaya fight, I think, is a real concern because Yana was able to trade back clinch positions back and forth. Yana was able to take her down in round two, kept her on her back for over 4 minutes. I mean, Vieira was looking like a fish out of water on her back against Yana Kunitskaya, not exactly the heaviest top game. And then Vieira was controlling round three of that fight, but let her slip out in the last 20 seconds, ate some shots, and got unlucky with that decision there. I mean, it could have gone either way. But if you look at Vieira's past three round threes versus Eubanks, versus Zingano, and versus Yana Kunitskaya, all three judges scored the round against her in all three of those fights. So it's um, clearly evident that she's slowing down in these fights, that she's having trouble winning that round three. And that's unfortunate for her because she's going in a 5 round fight here against a woman with good cardio who has a good chance to, come back in these later rounds. So, in terms of a pre fight bet for this one, I do think that Vieira's the side. I do favor her to win rounds one, maybe round two. And Vieira could just come out and maybe land a few punches and Tate shells up and gets TKO'd or something as well. But if the fight gets into the third, fourth round, I could see Tate, coming back, getting some top position, winning those later rounds. So I think Tate's a better live bet here. You might as well just wait to bet her. I think you're going to get her at plus money. And, I guess I'll be going with Vieira as a pick. I'm really conflicted on the outcome here. We've had a lot of main events go to the decision. I think 7 of the past 8 UFC main events have made it to the decision. And a lot of those fights were favored to end inside the distance, and they didn't. So, I kind of lean this fight going the distance just based on that trend. And I think, it going the distance could possibly favor Misha Tate. So I'm kind of all over the place with this fight. I don't have a confident pick, but I guess I'll be going with Vieira as my official pick.
There you go.
Any closing thoughts here?
No, not really. I think it's good fight card overall, top to bottom. I do think that well matched overall. I think lastly, obviously we need to give our parlay
Yeah, well, I think
again
last week didn't we give Da
3
Un
to
Jung and Andrew
three,
Lee?
3 to 1, 3 to 1 parlay did come through last week. So we're up. If you hit bet 1 unit on that, you'd be up 3 units. So let's look to keep it rolling. I'm gonna take I think I'm gonna take Natan Levy as my pick. Money line plus 105. You could get at most places or a lot of places right now. So I'll take that one. And who are you gonna go with?
Damn, that was gonna be mine as well.
You're
But
gonna go Natan.
let me think. I think one of the overs in one of these early fights. Let me think.
Let the people down.
Um, damn,
Let
yeah, this is a tough decision. I'll go Sean Brady, I guess. Sean
Sean
Brady.
Brady. Okay, so we'll go with Natan Levy plus 105. Sean Brady will go minus 157. We'll do the 5 dimes price. So at 2 team parlay there. Let's see if we keep that rolling. I like that one. I like that parlay. So nice.
And 12 fights, not a lot of name recognition on this card, a lot of new UFC fighters. But like I said, I consider Chiesa, Brady, Yahya-Kang, and then the 5 middle fights from Yanez to McKinney. All those are good fights. So I think there's 7 good fights on this card. A few stinker matchups as well, but for a card with that much name value, I think we're going to have some good fights. There's some good lines to bet on, and I think we're going to have a good card anyway. So hope you all enjoy the card. We got a 1 week break before there's a Thanksgiving next week, so we have a week off, and hope you all enjoy the fights this weekend. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for supporting. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, listen on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. Make sure you're subscribing wherever you listen. And thanks for listening. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Peace out.
Peace.